Hey everyone, Brendan Sander here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me, and welcome to a special review for the brand new Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate Punk Rock Fiesta as their ninth studio album. So glad to have these guys back. The album just came out on March 1st of 2025. I had to purchase it direct from Jizzy Pearl's website. It's not something that I have been able to find either in stores or online. So just know that if you want a copy of this and you can get it signed by Jizzy Pearl, that is the way to do it. Go to his website. We're going to dive into this, do a full review and unboxing of it in just a bit. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with a special review for the brand new Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate Punk Rock Fiesta, and it certainly is that. But as I always like to do, I like to jump back, give you guys a little bit of context about what it is we're going to be talking about here. And so the band itself actually goes back to 1985. At that time, though, they were called Data Clan, and they were an electronic band. Thank goodness they made a change from that, although who knows, maybe they would have been successful that way. But in 86, they changed their name to Love Hate. They did have a bit of success in 1987 as they got two songs in different films, Critters 2 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Not sure why, though, it took them as long as it did for the debut album to come out, but they were signed in 88 to Columbia Records, and then by 1990, the classic Blackout in the Red Room, one of the best debut albums from the sleaze rock era of music. It's just killer all the way through. Absolutely love this thing. Their approach, the sort of rhythmic approach and everything that they did for that album was absolutely amazing. If for some reason you've never checked that out, you got to go back to that one. But, the next album, though, that didn't come out until 1992, Wasted in America, this one here, in my opinion, is the best of the two albums, my personal favorite. Absolutely loved the unique sounds that came out of that one there. And unfortunately, though, due to changing times and everything, we know the story. Columbia Records dropped the band, but they would continue on. I mean, as I said, they've got 9 studio albums. Their third album, Let's Rumble from '93, featured guitarist Darren Householder. And the reason that's important is he is part of the current lineup. So we're not just talking about Jizzy Pearl being the only one in the band. Unfortunately, though, Love Hate would break up in 99, but make a triumphant return 23 years later in 2022 as Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate, and release this album here, Hell California. Jizzy Pearl had come back under the name of Jizzy Pearl of Love Hate, releasing this album, All You Need Is Soul, in 2018, but it's not actually considered a Love Hate album. So when I talk about the 9 studio albums, I am talking about the ones that are titled as Love Hate or Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate, which actually only appears on the spine. As you can see, it just says the Love Hate there. And of course, the album we want to talk about, which is Punk Rock Fiesta. Same thing, saying Love Hate there. In fact, I actually hunted. I thought maybe they would have put Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate there, but it is just on the spine. And these days, marketing is everything, so I kind of understand why they're doing it, and I don't really have an issue with it. Ninth studio album, as I said, let's talk about this here. So 8 songs on it, which is a little short in my opinion, especially since this clocks in at only 28 minutes, which in my opinion is EP length. But then again, I'm a child of the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s, when albums were pushing the 60+ minute mark. But these days albums are shorter and shorter, especially with the revival of vinyl. So 28 minutes, while on the short side of vinyl, is in fact full-length album. So it is what it is. The lineup for this, Jizzy Pearl on vocals. Of course, we know that he would go on and do many other things outside of Love Hate, making a bigger name for himself in LA Guns, Ratt, Currently in Quiet Riot, he was part of Adler's Appetite, Steven Adler from GNR, doing a side thing. We also have Darren Householder, as I mentioned, having been on the Let's Rumble 93 album. He is back in tow here, playing guitar, amazing guitar player. If you've never checked out any of the solo works of Darren Householder, he was a killer guitar shredder, having had an album out on what is the shred label? Shrapnel. There you go. Then we've got Christian Kismet on bass and Charles Evans on drums, and they do a nice job on this album as well. But this album here is exactly what you would expect and exactly what you would want from Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate, keeping that legacy going. Now, what's really crazy is that Jizzy Pearl is 67 years old, and I really had no idea. I mean, I thought maybe 57. But when I looked up, and I couldn't believe, because his vocals sound so good on this, and you know the style that he sings in, it's one of those things that's like, how does he keep doing it at this age? But he's kind of like the Alice Cooper of glam metal, where those guys' voices continue to fit the style of music that they do so well. The older they get, the dirtier and rawer it gets, and it just works for some reason. Some artists doesn't work. Bon Jovi, as he ages, that vocal doesn't quite fit what he used to do back in the 80s, right? But in this particular case, Jizzy Pearl doing an absolutely amazing job here. Darren is on fire too, playing amazing guitar work, fills, solos, everything that's on this album, exactly what you would want. He just lights this album up, keeps it interesting throughout regardless. I mean, there's always some killer little guitar fill or something happening in this that just perks my ears right up. So in my opinion, both Jizzy and Darren having done a great job at restoring the legacy of Love Hate with these, both the current album that I'm talking about, but also the last album here, really giving a name back to the band, making them something not only worth the time in terms of nostalgia and history and the era that they come from, but modern present day music that is going on. These guys are doing a great job. And as I said, certainly a shout out to the rhythm section of both Christian and Charles, who I think are a great addition to the band, holding everything down the way that they should. And so I will say that, while the new stuff, the two new albums, are never going to be what these albums are. These are just a moment in time. Rightly so, they are phenomenal. The album itself, in my opinion, just builds on that dirty, sleazy rhythm of sound from the heyday, keeps it right in place, your head right in where it should be all the way through the album. And when those songs are played live next to the classic stuff, I think it's going to all go really well together. And let's go ahead and talk about now some of those standout tracks. So track one, we've got You're Gonna Burn. This is the debut single that came from the album, and it kicks off in just fine fashion, top form. It's exactly what you'd expect, and at the same time it's letting you know what is going to come from the album all the way through. And maybe because I've heard this one a number of times before getting the album, it's currently my favorite. I don't know, but there's just something about this song that is really, really strong, making it my favorite one on the album at this point. Track number two, Eye for an Eye. So Darren's guitar playing on this one is particularly good, shredding from the master all over the place, and it is just another strong rocker of a song. Track number four, Over the Edge. This one here is a nice change of pace after three really strong opening tracks. This one here is a down and dirty slow rocker that sort of really gets the angst and rage going on. It makes you want to pump your fist in the air. But what's interesting is it has a really cool sing-along chorus in it. And then track number six, Can't Be Wrong, which is another change of pace. This one here, almost as close as the album might come to what you would call a ballad. It is not, but it is a slow, brooding rocker that's both eerie and calming all at the same time. It's got some real charm to it, but it makes for a really cool, giving the album sort of peaks and valleys, and I always really enjoy albums that are that way. So let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. Front cover art on it. And I really like the backside of this with Jizzy right in the middle. Big song titles on this thing. Looks like there's a lot of songs, but in fact, because of the alternating colors, you can tell and count there are only 8 that are on there. And let me move my fingers. These are numbered. I don't know if they're all numbered, but this one here, 423 of 500, might also be because it's autographed. And if you head over to his website, you can currently order an autographed edition of it. So like I said, I don't know that the album itself will only be 500 copies. Maybe that's just the autograph version, but nonetheless, that was a really cool thing when this came in the mail to not only see it as autographed, but also numbered like that. We open it up, get some cool, album art there on the CD, and I'll pop that out just to show you what's behind it, which is the album art from previous album, but also just kind of their logo sort of thing. So cool though to carry that over. And we've got the booklet here, which nice to see that it's not just like a single page that's in it. But what we've got inside are just the lyrics, and we got a couple band photo across the board like that, all individually taken, of course, but they all look great. The rest of the lyrics, and then the backside that gives you some album information. So not too bad, meaning, you got some photos there, you got this picture here, and you've got that picture of Jizzy Pearl. All too often these days, these albums are coming out without photos of bands, and that really bums me out. I know I can go on the internet and get it, but I love it to come all in one succinct package. This one is doing it, so nice package, nice album. And I gotta say, the autograph edition of this didn't cost anything more than the regular version of it. And I almost didn't even catch that. So if you're on the website and you're checking it out, do look for that autograph one because it costs the same amount. All right, bottom line on this album here, I think it's a nice addition to the Love-Hate catalog. Builds on their legacy. In fact, it's actually would rank higher in the overall ranking of the 9 albums and some of the later day era stuff that they did in the 90s before making the return here. I actually also think this album here is better than the last album. We'll save the rest of it for maybe an album ranking at some point, but all is to say that I think this album here is a very strong album, getting better since the return that they did in 2022. This one here, the way I look at this is, I definitely for fans of Jizzy Pearl, which I know he has a lot. In fact, he probably has more fans out there than the band Love-Hate itself. But definitely for fans of Love-Hate, I also find it to be a killer modern day sleaze rock album. And so I recommend this to anyone who loves that genre, who wants to hear an originator like Jizzy Pearl, who happens to be 67 years old, still blows my mind, still doing it as good today from what he did back in the glam metal heydays of the late 80s and early 90s. The new album itself, Jizzy Pearl's Love-Hate, certainly a punk rock fiesta, and it is not to be missed. So there you go. That is my review of the brand new Jizzy Pearl's Love-Hate album, Punk Rock Fiesta. I do hope that you guys enjoyed hearing about this. As I said, it's not something that I was able to find in my local record store and or online places like Amazon. I had to head over to Jizzy Pearl's website where I found it. He shipped it, he got it out to me in a very quick turnaround time. So if you're looking for this like I was looking for it, do head over to Jizzy Pearl's website in order to grab your copy, especially the fact that it could be heavily limited as the numbering on the back of this one shows. It is out there to stream for those of you who like to stream, and I believe it might even be available as LP on the website as well. But either way, a lot of different ways that you guys can enjoy this fantastic sleaze rock album, and I hope that you do. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.